My guest today is Jo Suddaby. She is the spiritual director of the Clover Center for Arts and Spirituality. Welcome, Jo. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Glad you're here. So tell us about the Clover Center. It's a new venue for the arts in Rochester.
That's right. We're in Brighton, just right on the edge of the city of Rochester, and we're a cultural center that combines spirituality and artistry of all varieties and allows the different groups that use the facility to benefit from networking and helping each other out. So we have everything from flautists to camera enthusiasts, 2 churches, a couple of choirs, and a bunch of other renters. And they all benefit in ways that they kind of couldn't anticipate before rubbing elbows with each other in the hallways of the Clover Center.
I see. And the Clover Center is located in Brighton, but would people recognize the facility?
Yes. The Baptist Temple is the congregation that gave this building back to the community. They still own it, but they were hoping that their hospitality and their love for the arts could benefit Brighton and Rochester and the surrounding area. So the Baptist Temple is still there, the congregation, as is another congregation from the Vineyard denomination. And the building is open 7 days a week so that all of the other cultural groups can use it and can have access to our facilities and our networking abilities.
And so when you mention facilities, what kind of spaces are available to groups that use it?
When people walk into the building, they are generally impressed. The sanctuary seats over 400 people. I think it's 460, but don't quote me on that. 400's enough, though.
Good space.
It's a big, beautiful space with great acoustics that our choirs appreciate a lot, with a beautiful sort of modern stained glass window that brings natural light into the facility, and a stage area that's very good for theatrical productions as well. And then our other most used space, the Fellowship Hall, is a big, beautiful building, seats over 120 people, and has a working fireplace that is enormous, perfect for sort of holiday intimate concerts, wedding receptions, and smaller musical acts.
I see. So you're opening it to civic events as well as artistic events.
That's correct.
So people could rent it for their occasion, for instance.
Oh yes, and they do all the time. And when you dress it up and decorate it in different ways, it can look like a concert hall. It can look like a harvest dinner. It can look like a family reunion. So it's a very versatile room.
That's phenomenal. Now, is there a display space for graphic arts or fine arts?
Yes, all of our hallways are home to the works of Camera Rochester, and also 2 of our watercolor artists who are in the congregation. And we just opened up what we call the Coves, and the Coves are former coat cubbies. They're about 6 feet wide, and now that they're emptied, they're just a little mini galleries, probably spaced for 3 small sculptures or 3 or 4 paintings or photographs. And what they do is allow an artist to show a small amount of work, but in its own little environment, so that it's not kind of mixing with the other art that's in the building. But just about every wall is covered in art, and the galleries rotate throughout the season.
Well, it's worth a visit in that case.
Definitely.
Now, is that fellowship room basically a classroom, or is it a general purpose room, or what's the ceiling like? Is there light and that kind of thing?
It's 2 stories with a balcony on the around the perimeter. It's kind of a diamond shaped, and at the tip of the diamond is the big, gorgeous fireplace, and then around the edges of the diamond are the windows, which allow in lots of natural light and view of our beautiful, very old elm trees which surround the property. So the property itself is a gem. We allow picnics, and people do all sorts of outdoor concerts, and we have a doggy meet and greet that happens every year on the yard. So the yard is just as much a beautiful space as the inside of the Clover Center is.
Now, architecturally, what period does the building date from?
It is fabulously retro. This building was built in 1963-64, and minus the orange carpets, which we've all taken out, every room is angular, every window is unique, and there's not a square room in the place. So it was actually built to look kind of in your mind's eye like a boat. So the sanctuary goes up in a peak, and in that way looks like the prow of the boat, and the fellowship hall also goes up in that diamond-shaped peak and is the rear of the boat. So we're all in this cultural boat together.
Well,
it's a beautiful space.
I admire the energy and the creativity in using the space imaginatively.
Thanks. We're having a really wonderful time meeting all of the people from the surrounding areas who have such creative ideas and just need a space to thrive in, a space that's not, somebody's attic or somebody's basement, that's beautiful and fitting to their creative process. So we love partnering with local artists and allowing them to have a little more elbow room for their creativity.
Right. Well, that once you're out of the academic setting, that space is hard to come by.
It's true, and that's part of the reason that the congregation decided to repurpose their building and to expand the use. The congregation's been around since 1834.
My, oh my.
And they used to occupy the temple building downtown, which most people will know about.
Yes.
They moved out to the suburbs in the 60s, but never lost their love for the arts and their belief that the arts is really a spiritual activity, that it connects people. And so with that thought, rather than just keep the building all to ourselves, we thought, let's expand it. Let's give it back to the community. Let's be hosts and hostesses for the people that we're most inspired to help out, which are the other creative souls in Rochester.
Now, were they using the space when it was primarily a church?
Yes, we've been in the space since '64 when it was completed. And the church uses it, of course, on Sundays and on different days for Bible study and seniors group. But there was more room than we needed. And the answer to, if you have more than you need, isn't to hide it away, it's to share it with other people who are like-minded.
And the arts groups had already found you, I think.
Yes, the arts groups had already found us. So becoming the cultural center, becoming the Clover Center for Arts and Spirituality is really just a better name for what we already were.
I see.
We were already doing the arts, we were already doing the spirituality, and it was already a very equal partnership between us who own the building and those who rent it. And not just a partnership, but a collaboration of, we have concerts together, we do service projects together, we help community groups in need with the proceeds from some of our renters' concerts. So it's a very organic and family-like atmosphere.
Well, that's a nice touch that a renter's the proceeds from the rent actually support other charitable activities.
That's right. They allow us to continue to do what we've always done, which is to, show people love and show people community and make this community a better place. We believe that the church shouldn't just exist for itself. That's short-sighted. The church exists for everybody, Christian and non-Christian, to improve the culture of a city, to improve the lives of young people and their creativity, to help the leaders of other not-for-profits to thrive.
So if I'm an arts group, I won't find a denominational focus, for instance, if I come and rent the Clover Center?
No, we are very an interdenominational and interreligious organization. We're proud, of course, of who we are, but we want others to be equally proud of who they are and what they believe. So it's a very welcoming environment, and I think it's a surprise to most people who are used to spirituality being exclusive. This is a very open space, almost to the point where it takes people off guard and they wonder, what are we after? And what we're after is whatever is natural to you and whatever creative comes out of your group and your organization.
Now, how did you arrive at this focus yourself? I mean, with a pastoral training, are you an artist yourself?
I am, yeah. So I'm the pastor of the Baptist Temple, the spiritual director of the Clover Center. It's kind of they overlap in all sorts of ways. And I'm an artist myself. So it was a good fit when the congregation hired me, I'd like to think.
We'll stick with that.
Right. It was a great fit because they already had this love for music and the arts, and that's an area that I felt very comfortable in. I've been in theater since I was old enough to walk. I sing, and I also do a form of Tibetan sand art. It's dry sand painting that's pretty rare in the West.
The mandala on the floor.
sand mandalas
brilliant.
that usually just the Tibetan lamas do. So I'm one of 2 or 3 Westerners.
Quite a meditative procedure.
Right. So for me, art and spirituality were always, they go right together. Just like the mandala, you're creating something beautiful, and when people look at it, they feel changed. And the same idea was with the Clover Center. The facility's beautiful, the things that go on there are beautiful, and it doesn't need a denomination for people to feel, wow, I feel different because I've seen this concert, because I've taken time to look at this beautiful photograph, because I've attended this service and thought, oh, these are, these are some fascinating people.
And some stimulation from lots of different angles, visual and auditory. Now, how about education? Is there any education function going on in the building?
Yes, actually the renter that takes up the most space in the building is Kids First Child Care. And Kids First is a wonderful organization. They do daycare for kids 0 to preschool, and they occupy most of our top floor. Most of the second floor. So there's that education that goes on. And then at the other end of the spectrum, we have a seniors group called the Older, Wiser Learning Seniors, the Owls. And the Wise Owls, they get together once a week for a little bit of exercise that's age appropriate and continued learning, everything from the history of the Genesee to learning about service projects to how to do their Medicaid paperwork to, baking bread and all the different recipes. So they learn together, and it's not only a beautiful way to continue education, but it staves off that loneliness that older folks often suffer through. And having the preschoolers and the seniors in the same building, they do crafts together, they learn from one another. It's really good for both groups to connect, over simple things that make them feel, really connected again.
Now, if people are trying to find out about the Clover Center, do you have a website that shows these activities? Or
we sure do. theclovercenter.com. Yep. Make sure you put the in there.
Theclovercenter.com.
Apparently, clovercenter.com is a health center in Kuwait.
Okay.
So you probably won't drive to the wrong place, but you might look up the wrong one. So yes, www.theclovercenter.com. And that has information both about the congregation, the Baptist Temple, and all of the other groups that we rent to. All of our other partners in the arts, as well as the space and what it takes to rent it and how to get in contact with us.
I see. So if I were to rent the space, there's some promotional value that comes from doing so because you listed on
There
your
absolutely
website.
is. We just like sharing the building, we wanted to share the website as well. So the website gives free promotion to all of our rental groups and also talks about upcoming events so that if you have, say, a concert that you're running, it'll be on our website, it'll be on our social media, and it'll be on our radio advertising as part of the package for partnering with us.
That's beautiful promotional value for a small budget group, for instance, that wishes to use the space.
And I think a church understands that. We're all not-for-profits, and not everybody's rolling in the dough, and we know that every little bit of promotion that you don't have to pay for is really, really valuable.
How true.
So we want to be able to give that back to all of our groups.
Well, our audiences, new audiences, finding you and finding the building, is there more traffic through the building than you noticed before? Or?
Oh yeah, there's definitely new traffic. In fact, we don't really have a front door. The way the building's shaped, we have like 3 side doors. And so in order to help all the new traffic find their way, we've had to paint the doors. So one side is green, one side is yellow, and one side is blue. So that rather than saying the side or the front, we can tell all the new people that are coming to the building, go to the yellow door, go to the green door, go to the blue door, and that helps. But yeah, it's been really nice to see all the new people that come by and are surprised at how does a, say, chronic pain management group and a flute group benefit one another. But they do, because music helps pain, and so these 2 renters work together sometimes, and it's something that wouldn't happen if it was just a rental space, because it's not. We're a not-for-profit, and we exist to provide community and to provide support for artists, so that artists know and musicians know this is a place to go to support yourself and your group, not just to have a space to rent. we're more, we like to be more than that, which is why it has a spiritual director to help people, to help people find themselves again as artists and bloom anew in the presence of other artists.
Oh, that's brilliant. So you're renting a bit of heart as long as a bit of real estate.
Exactly. Yeah, the heart comes free. Yeah.
That's really lovely. And so now, if, for instance, I need a piano, are there pianos? Are there lights? Are there the things that arts groups need?
Yes, we have a beautiful grand piano, which we always keep in tune for folks. We have an organ that is a vintage 60s, very cool electric organ.
You're talking about a pipe organ?
A big pipe organ.
Big pipe.
Yes, yes, not just a little one, but a very large pipe organ that's got some real oomph behind it, as well as a marimba and a couple of percussion instruments. We have a full sound system, a spotlight, and everything that you would need for a theatrical production or a concert of some sort. And the seats in the sanctuary, most of them are movable, so that if you wanted to have a regular style audience, you can, or if you want to do something more intimate, say in the round or with bistro tables, so that you can have the VIP members up front, with their little cocktails, then that's a whole different, option.
So, flexible space.
Exactly, and all the spaces are very flexible. We made them that way on purpose, so that whatever people could dream up, we could adapt to.
Now, is there a galley space, for instance, if I were to have a corporate reception there, or a reception, wedding reception? Is there a kitchen facility? Or?
Yes, the kitchen is very big. And it's an approved kitchen to serve hundreds of people, by the state, so it's all certified and safe. And we have caterers available if people want them, but they're also welcome to use the space by themselves, and we oversee the safety of all of that, of course. But we love to be a space for eating, because the word Baptist just means eating. That's basically the breakdown of it, and we like to host lots of dinners and allow people to host their own, either bring in food or cook it right there, so that everybody feels comfortable around food.
The Baptist tradition is serving you well in that way.
Exactly, yes. Baptists don't make decisions without a potluck around it,
Speaking of decisions, you're making them on the spiritual side. Are you served by a board, or do you have staff, or how are you managing it?
Yes, we have a leadership team which serves as the board of that, and they are a wonderful group of people who decide, are people in line with the values of building culture and building people's creativity. So we do choose who we rent to, not to be discriminatory, but in order to make sure that it's a good fit. Because the last thing we would want was for somebody to feel like a fifth wheel at the cultural center. And we also make sure that we can serve everyone well, so that if a renter wants to come in with, say, an idea we haven't had, we have to think, do we have the furniture for that? Do we have the time constraints, because most of the space is shared, and how can we best serve their ideas? And occasionally we've best served them by suggesting another space. But most of the time, because our building is really big and very versatile, we can do whatever they need us to do for their production.
Well, that's terrific. Now how does it fit into the city in general? Are there other churches with a similar mission, or any similar kind of models for you, or is this really unique in your approach, would you say?
I would love to say that we're completely unique. In Rochester, we are a fairly unique, marriage of spirituality and artistry. There's some other churches who have done it, but we are following a larger trend around the country. The trend around the country, most people have read the Gallup polls and everything else that says religion is dying. And I'm not all that sad about that, because I think religion is being reborn into something that's more friendly and something that's more accepting.
I see.
And so the old forms of religion aren't very attractive to people my age, say, in the millennial generation. But what is attractive is spaces that are open for question, things that you can talk back and you can ask really difficult questions, and where you don't have to be labeled, but the spirituality is accepting you as the way you were made. And so the arts is a place where people find themselves. just like church has traditionally been a place where people find themselves. And the trend across the country right now is that the churches who are on the edge, on the just very cutting edge of what's coming next, are letting go of labels and doctrines and have-tos, and getting into get-tos and what if and open questioning spaces. And the best ways to ask questions that really challenge who we are as a race is through art. Those are always the people who are ahead of their time, are the painters and the musicians and the sculptors and the and the kids. So we love to be a host to this new emergence of what's happening, both in the art world and in the spiritual world.
Yeah, they say about millennials that they're very mission-driven and very idea-driven and ideal-driven.
Right. Yeah. Don't just have us sit down and listen. We want to do something.
I got it.
And so one of the main focuses of the Clover Center is here's a space to do something. And you're free to do, whatever your heart leads you to, but also there's experts here to help. So, I've got a degree. I spent 9 years in school learning about spirituality. I can help not answer, but tweak some of those very interesting questions and give some guidance. And we have expert musicians and artists who can also serve as guides, so that as you're asking the question, you're not the only one in the room to be trading ideas. And that kind of collaboration is really good for religious organizations and good for secular organizations. And that's the bridge that we are comfy living on, is this wonderful in-between space where spirituality is respected, but it's not forced. Because artistry can never be forced.
Right. So fewer of those things that divide people and more of them where they can find a common space.
And there are so many things that lots of artists have in common, but something about the artist's brain says, I'm the only one who's ever thought of this. I'm all by myself and my creativity. When in actuality, there are other artists who are thinking they're the only ones who are that creative. And so the humbling but wonderful effect of working together is that we realize that we're asking the same questions.
That's lovely. Now, you're seated in the corner of very prominent thoroughfares in Rochester, sort of.
Right. So the Clover in the Clover Center we're on Clover Street. And Clover, Highland, and East all come together at the corner right next to us. So we're right on the edge of 490. It's easy to get to.
Easy to get to.
Yep. And besides the beautiful trees in the front, the parking lot's in the back, and there's plenty of room for
good parking.
people to park. Yep.
Handicapped accessible.
Oh, yes.
ADA accessible.
Yes, definitely.
Now, how has the neighborhood around your facility accepted your change?
They've been so supportive. We have, and I'm not sure if it's just, darn good luck that we have wonderful neighbors, or if we're really doing something that appeals to them. But they've said, wow, this is different than just we're going to be an insular religious organization and not invite anyone else. They've felt welcomed. They're interested in what we're doing. We have a harvest dinner once a year for all the neighbors. That's free.
Lovely.
The doggy meet and greet, which happens every year, brings all the dog lovers. And at events like that, people meet their neighbors and realize, now wait, I've lived 4 doors down from you for 10 years. We've never talked. And part of the reason that the Cultural Center will be so good for the neighborhood is that it does things just like that. It helps neighbors just meet each other, so that later, when you need a cup of sugar, you know where to go to. And I think that's a spiritual thing. I think that's a creative combining of what a community should be about.
Well, that's a very fortunate thing. So you're sort of the hub for that community good feeling.
Yeah, we're the hive, and we like it.
The hive. Now, I happened to walk in the other day and noticed that there was a great deal of electronic equipment set up at one end of one of the room. What was that all about?
Let's see.
Probably a rock and roll band of some kind.
Yes. Well, so the 2 churches that are in the building are very different. The Baptist Temple is a traditional, but not in a bad way. It's a classical, contemplative, intellectual type of service where you can go and feel calm for once in the week. And Rock City Church is a rock band church full of young people and little kids running all around with a full band and a disco ball and lights and the whole thing. And so we don't see each other as competition. We love sharing the space because we know that the same people who love classical music are not always the same folks who love rock.
Yeah.
And that's fine because the mission of serving the community and of helping people feel loved is shared. And so we love both doing that. And yes, they have quite the impressive sound system.
And I understand there is a good deal of crossover between those who love classical music and rock music.
Right, we're trying to bring them all together.
That's just wonderful. Now, in terms of the national church situation, is the Baptist congregation at large been accepting of your change? And what have you heard from your peers in the nationwide, for instance?
So nationwide, the churches that are on the edge of this new thing with us, in Virginia and Canada and Texas, they're all over the place, tend to be from different denominations. So it doesn't matter where you're from, but those of us on the edge kind of find each other. But in general, the American Baptists is what denomination the Baptist Temple is. And the American Baptists are the sort of forward-thinking section of Baptists. We are very intent on no hierarchy, on individual choice and interpretation, and on no pressure to convert, because that's what's happening in people's souls is really their job and God's job, and we're just there to kind of hold down the fort. And for those who are attracted to our form of spirituality, there's always a welcome door. For those for whom it's not their cup of tea, or who are ancestrally linked to another religion, we'll help you find a good mosque or a good synagogue. And we're okay with that too.
But it's been a courageous thing to do, and I think an imaginative thing to do, to change your mission from being a church with arts as a subset to being an arts center with church as a subset.
It does match the way that culture's going. Arts speak louder than churches for the most part, especially to my generation. And so we want to let the arts speak, because if God's around, God's in everying.
Yes.
And God speaks through the arts. You don't have to, you don't have to put a particular label on it. So allowing God to speak through the arts versus God to speak through the church, we said we can have both. We can have our arts and eat it too, or whatever. And
so, talking about the forward thinking, what do you see for the facility 5 years down the road? What's the plan? Do you have a long-range plan in place?
We do. Our hope is that as the Arts Center thrives and the congregations thrive, that we will be known in the community as a place where artists can come and get recharged and refilled, so they can go back out and do great art, and that will be known as a very flexible space that feels like home. People have a lot of business relationships where they have to be a certain thing. They have to dress nice and be proper. But the places that feel like home in our society are getting shorter and shorter. We have less places where we can calm down and float a creative idea that we haven't thought through all the way yet, or ask a question that might feel embarrassing. And we hope that the atmosphere of all these artists and spiritual seekers becomes a place where you can ask that embarrassing question and people don't even skip a beat about it.
A place of safety and a place of welcome.
Exactly. And we think that kind of safety and welcome doesn't create mediocre art from amateurs. It helps amateurs become professionals. It helps people to get better, because you don't get better without risk. And people do need a little bit of permission to take that risk and a safe space in which to do it.
So a new space for the arts in Rochester, the Clover Center.
Right.
Arts and Spirituality. And my guest has been Jo Suddaby, the Spiritual Director. Thank you so much for coming in. You've been a wonderful guest.
Glad to be here.
Glad you're here.